Well, happy Father's Day to the fathers out there. So happy Father's Day this weekend. If hopefully you get to enjoy something for Father's Day, maybe a nap or whatever it is for you. Yeah, I saw somebody tweeted this morning something about their kid had said, I understand what Father's Day is. It's just like Mother's Day, only you don't spend as much on the presents as you do for Mother's Day. It's just, as Mother's Day. It's like, well, okay, there's nothing wrong with that. And so, but happy Father's Day. I'm becoming an older father. My kids are growing up. And the thing that you hear people say often, I don't know if you guys have heard it, but the older I become, the better I was, right? The older I get, the greater that I was. It's becoming more and more of a reality to me the older that I get. And a couple of weeks ago, a couple times now, I went and played basketball on Thursday nights. There's some guys that come up and play basketball, and I knew that they were considerably younger, but back in my day, I used to play a little bit of basketball, and I would never claim to be great, although I would say I could, hold my own, and kind of had a mentality when I walked into the gym that I was going to be, the best, or at least be up there with these guys. And so I realized I hadn't played in a while, and I thought, but I've played a lot of basketball, I'll be okay. And so I get in there with these guys, and they are much younger than me. And that becomes quickly apparent. Like after literally about 3 minutes, we run up and down the court 3 times. Not only am I older, but I am much more out of shape. And it is becoming clearly obvious to the point that the last time I went, I pretty much guarded a junior high kid the whole time there. And not only did I try to guard him, but he pretty much schooled me the entire time. And I walked away just thinking, man, the older I am, the greater I used to be, And I don't know if for you, if everybody can kind of relate to that, like this desire within us to want to be great, this desire within us to want to have influence and power. And so maybe basketball doesn't resonate with you, but I think I found something this week that I think resonates with most people. That when you walk into this place, you are seeking greatness. Like you want to walk into this place, and you want, when you walk out to this place, to just be in awe of what's just happened, right? So yesterday we took our kids to Gaddy, to get Mr. Gaddy's. And I don't know of anyone that can walk into Mr. Gaddy land, right, and see all the things up there, all the toys and things that you can get, and not just be, you want to go get all the tickets that you can get, right? I think that's universal, okay? If that's not you, then you've got something wrong, okay? Because there's something about going in, and I know you want to be like, it's just for my kids, right? So you get your kids some tokens, but you save a few just for you, right? So you can go play the games and do this. And so this was normal. This is what normally happens. So we took our kids there, and they're playing games. And my dad had come in for the weekend for our kids' birthdays, and my grandmother, and so we're all there together. And just, being the good dad that I am, the kids are playing. We have a few tokens left. And I said, I'm going to go play this one game and see if I can, get some tickets and make my kids proud, that old dad can, get some tickets for them or whatever. And so I go to I don't know if you guys have been there, but I'm going to try to explain it to you. I go to this one game, and it's like a big wheel. It's a fishing, it's kind of a big fish game. I don't know. You pull the little thing down, and it spins, kind of like The Price is Right. If you know what The Price is Right is, similar to that. This is you don't have to do anything, all right? I put my coins in there, and I pull the deal down, and it starts spinning, and sure enough, I'm not kidding, it lands on the 1,000 tickets. 1,000, yeah, you should be jealous right now because, I'm in awe. I'm sitting there and it's rotating and I'm hey, that just went back by. It's just like Price is Right, right? Here it comes again and it's kind of slowing down. I'm like, this is going to happen. Literally, I'm about to win 1,000 tickets and my kid's there and it stops on 1,000. I don't really know what to do. I'm looking around at my kids. Did you see this? You got to go get Mom. She's got to come. We've got to take pictures. We probably need to call the newspaper. This is a big deal. Go get my dad. We've got to come, celebrate this. And my kids are coming, and these tickets just keep coming out. And I'm looking around like, it's, like people are wanting to play the game. I'm like, yeah, we'll have to wait. There's like 500 more. I know. Just give it some time. They'll come out, And my kids are like, Dad, that's so great. That's so awesome. I know, son. Not my son, my daughters. I'm like, I know. And they're like, Dad, probably no one has ever done that. And I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. I'm probably the only one that's ever done that. And I said, I know that's silly, but I walked out of that place and I really didn't do much, right? I put my coins in and pulled it. It didn't take a lot of skill, but there was an element. You would walk up to the deal and I get to pick my pick instead of looking at, the little 3 little slots over here, right? The little Chinese cuffs or whatever, no, kids, we're looking up to the big stuff, right? It's like we can get, and there's something within me. I know it's tickets, and you're like, Tim, you've got a problem, and maybe I do, but it's like, I think there's something within all of us. We want to be great, whether it's getting tickets at Mr. Gaddy's, or maybe it's your job. You want your people around you, people that you work with, the people that you work for. You want them to look at you and see your work and see your effort and say, man, that person's great at what they do. And maybe students, you say, man, I want to be great in my classes and my studies. Maybe some of you are like, I just want to pass. That's good enough for me. But maybe like you want to be a great friend, right? You want your friends to surround you to say, man, that's a great friend. They're so great. Maybe as a mom or a dad or a husband or a wife, I think there's something within us that says, man, we want to be great. Let's open up to Mark. There's a passage this morning, Mark chapter 10. I think that will help us in our quest for greatness, in our quest to uncover and discover greatness in our lives. How can we be people of greatness, of influence, power, and authority, and people would see us and they would just think, man, that person is incredible. Mark chapter 10, starting in verse 32. So they were on the road. This is Jesus and the disciples. They're going up to Jerusalem, and Jesus is walking ahead of them, and they were astonished, but those who followed him were afraid. Taking the 12 aside again, he began to tell them these things that would happen to him. So the disciples are following lots of other disciples and the 12, and they're just, what Jesus has been doing is a little bit overwhelming for them, and so Jesus takes the 12 aside. Verse 33, he says, "Listen, we are going up to Jerusalem. The Son of Man will be handed over to the chief priests and the scribes, and they will condemn him to death. Then they will hand him over to the Gentiles, and they will mock him, and they will spit on him, and they will flog him, and they will kill him. And he will rise after 3 days." So here's Jesus getting just in his ministry. He's got these followers, and they're seeing what Jesus is doing. Some of them a little afraid, but this guy's incredible. This guy is, man, this is great. This is somebody we want to follow. This is somebody we want to emulate. This Jesus, he is the Messiah. He's the one to come. All of these things. He's setting up this context for us. And then Jesus gets to the end and he says, okay, this is what's coming. What is coming is I'm about to be taken away. I'm going to be beaten. I'm going to be flogged. And I'm going to be killed. But then I'm going to rise on the 3rd day. So Jesus trying to give them a foreshadowing of what's to come and trying to really just be honest with them and share with them and the reality of what's going to happen. And then they really latch on to this last part. His disciples hear him say, and they kind of skip over the flogging and the killing part, and they really latch on to this, I'm going to be raised in 3 days, and not really exactly sure necessarily what they're thinking, but it seems to be clear, but based on their answers to come, that they are expecting Jesus to come in and bring this new kingdom. They're expecting Jesus to bring this new earthly kingdom with him that's going to be extraordinary. He is the Messiah. He is the king to come. This is the guy they want to follow. This is the guy they want to give their life to. And Jesus says, in 3 days, I'm going to rise, right? And Jesus declaring to them, yes, something is going to happen. They don't quite understand what it is. And so, verse 35, then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, approached him, and they said, "Teacher, we want you to do something for us if we ask you." Your translation may say, "We want you to do what we ask you to do." Jesus says, "What do you want me to do for you?" he asked them. And they answered him, "Allow us to sit at your right and your left in your glory." So here Jesus just pulls them aside and he tells them, I'm about to die. I'm about to face this incredible beating, this incredible flogging, this incredible moment in my life that's going to cause me to lose my life. And I'm going to overcome that. And so the brothers get together and they think, wow, this is a great opportunity for us, right? And so they come to Jesus and they demand, in a sense, the sense is that they're really demanding. They're not really asking. It's kind of that asking with a demand, with an expectation that this is how it's going to happen. Jesus answer what we ask of you. And Jesus being very patient. I mean, can you just imagine Jesus at this point? I mean, Jesus just pulled him aside and he's telling him, man, this is what this is what I'm about to endure. This is what I'm about to go through. Incredible. And then they're like, hey, Jesus, why don't you do what we ask you to do? And I just thought about the disciples here in this moment. How pretentious. How could they come to Jesus and say, Jesus, we want to sit at your right and your left. And what they're saying is, Jesus, we want you in your glory, whatever comes next in your coming kingdom, when you usher this thing in, when you rise on the third day, when we take over, we want to be at your right and we want to be at your left. We want to be the top dogs. That's what they're saying. We want to be right there at your right. We want to be right there at your left. Jesus, right there at the places of honor, the places of authority, the places of power. That's what they're saying. This is when the king, he would be the king and he would have his right-hand man and he would have his, I guess, left-hand man. I've never heard that. But there's these two people, right? And they're there and they're most important. They want to be the most important. I just thought about these guys. They haven't done anything to deserve to ask Jesus these questions. I mean, certainly they've followed him. Certainly they've done some things. But then I started thinking about my own life and how it can be so easy for me to come to Jesus that same way. They're so pretentious. So, Jesus, I'm going to ask you this because I deserve this. You should do this for me because I deserve this. There's some kind of self-loathing or just this, I am so good, God, that you should do this for me. I just wonder if Jesus, what he was really thinking. Jesus, again, being patient with them, verse 38, he says, you don't know what you're asking. Are you able to drink the cup I drink or to be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with? Jesus says, listen, you guys don't understand what you're asking me. You know, I wondered also with these guys, the left and the right, they're brothers, right? They probably argued quite a bit because they're brothers, and that's what brothers mostly do. I wondered if they argued like who was going to be on the right and who was, because the right-hand man is kind of like the best of the two. I wonder if they argued, and then Jesus, they say, Jesus is like, guys, you don't even understand what you're asking. You think you're going to be able to endure what I'm going to go through? You really think you can ask me that question? You really think that you deserve to be up here, to be equal with me, to be right, to be in authority, to be in power, to be over people, to have people looking up to you? I'm not really sure you know what you're asking. And again, sometimes I wondered if when we approach Jesus, if we're not really sure what we're asking. I mean, how many times have we come to Jesus on our own pretenses, with our own desires, with our own self-centered attitude, saying, God, do this for me, I want this. And Jesus is like, you don't even really know what you're at. If I even did something like that, it would blow your mind. It'd be unbelievable for you. Have you ever been in a situation where you ask someone to do something like that? And they're like, okay, but I'm not sure you know what you're getting yourself into. Right? I had this roommate in college, and he liked to ride mountain bikes. And so one time he was going out to ride mountain bikes. I did not ride mountain bikes. And so he said, hey, why don't you come with me? And actually, I said to him, hey, I want to go ride mountain bikes with you. And he said, I'm not so sure you want to do that, right? Like, you've never done this before. And it's like, well, I mean, I rode a bike since I was like 6. I mean, I know how to ride a bicycle. I know what I'm doing. He's like, okay, well, I'll get you a bicycle and we'll go ride. So we went out up to Fort Phantom, and so we started out on these trails. Literally within a minute, I had already flipped head over the handlebars. I'd already done a full flip over the handlebars, and I'm like thinking, what have I gotten myself into, right? What have I asked? I didn't have any clue what I was really asking. So we ride around a little bit more, and we get to this last part, and it's kind of this steady climb. And I ended the day flat on my back. I barely made it up. I had to push the bike up, and I just literally laid there for about 20 minutes. He's like, you ready to go? And I'm like, no, I really still think I'm about to throw up. Like, I need some time. I was just pale. It was miserable. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. Sometimes I wonder when we approach Jesus and we come to Jesus asking things, if we really understand what we're really asking sometimes. Particularly when we think about, we're talking about being a disciple of Jesus, talking about following Jesus. And so, God, we want to follow you. Particularly today, talking about we want to serve you. What does that mean? We must be careful that as we approach God and say, God, we want to serve you. We want to follow you. We want to love Jesus. We want to know truth. And this morning, God, we want to serve you. We want to give our lives for you. That's what they're saying. That's what the disciples are saying. God, we want to be right there with you. We want you to consider us as worthy to be right there. And Jesus says, I'm not so sure you know what you're asking. The question, what we must be careful, we must count the cost this morning, is when we say we are a disciple of Jesus Christ and we're going to get into what it means to really serve others, are we really sure we know what we're asking this morning? Verse 39, the disciples answer him, again, probably not really sure what's happening. They say, we are able. And Jesus says to them, you will drink the cup I drink, and you will be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with. But to sit at my right hand and my left is not mine to give. Instead, it is for those that it has been prepared for. So they say, hey, Jesus, we're ready. We're ready to do this. We're going to follow you. We'll do whatever you want. God, we can do this. And Jesus' response is, again, just in patience and love and knowing what's going to happen in their future, just kind of affirming that, okay, yes, guys, you're going to do this. This cup, this baptism, these are metaphors of you hear throughout the Bible about taking your cup or, what is to come. Jesus says when he prays in the garden, right, to God, he says, if you could take this cup from me, please do it. When he talks to the Father about the crucifixion that is to come, just, this in something that you're about to do that's going to be tough. This baptism that he's about to endure is not baptism like in the waters, though when we do say baptism, a lot of times we'll say, baptized in death with him. That this kind of what Jesus is about to endure is this death that he's going to accomplish. And certainly the disciples don't fully face what Jesus has to face, but we see through history that the disciples really did give their lives for Jesus, even though I'm not sure they fully knew what they were getting themselves into at this point. Then Jesus says, look, guys, this isn't for me to decide. Guys, you are going to give your life, and man, it's going to be awesome for you. But this decision, what you're asking me, it's not up to me. It's for those who are already being prepared. And I just wondered about Jesus, like, what is he doing here? And I think Jesus wants to just continue within them this thought of wanting to be great. Just think with me, if Jesus had said, no, guys, it's not for you. It's not for you. Here are the guys. It's these two guys. They're going to be sitting there. What do you think the brothers would have done? If they were like me, they probably would have said, well, then forget it. If we want to be there, we want to be great, God. We want to be in power and authority. We want to be right there next to you. And if that's not who we're going to be, then God, just forget it. I'm done, right? If I can't be the greatest, if I can't be the best, then forget it. I think maybe Jesus just... It's like putting the apple, out in front of the animal and you get to follow it. It's like he wants them to keep pursuing greatness. You see throughout this whole kind of conversation here, Jesus never calls them out for their desire to be great. Verse 41. When the other 10 disciples heard this, they began to be indignant with James and John. I think this is probably one of the funniest scriptures in all of the scriptures, all the Bible. I mean, I can just see it. Like, I only had one sister, but we argued a lot. She was several years older than me. But these disciples, kind of like brothers, right? They've been growing together. And really, this has already happened before. In chapter 9, they pretty much had the same discussion about who's going to be the greatest. And they kind of already had this same discussion. Well, they're walking down the road, and Jesus says, I'm going to rise in 3 days. And you can just see a couple of the brothers kind of cornering Jesus off to the side. And they're jockeying for position, right? They're like, Jesus, it's going to be me, man. Can you make me? Can you put me up there? Make me the guy. Make me. And the other disciples are kind of watching, and they're finally figuring out what's going on. And then pretty much a fight breaks loose, right? They start arguing. They get indignant, like, what are you doing? That's not, I can just see them arguing over who's going to be the greatest, which is so ironic. Right, here these guys are talking about following Jesus and who's going to be the greatest. And then if you know the rest, in light of what Jesus is about to say, it's extremely ironic. So here they are fighting, and Jesus pulls them aside, right? He says, You just see him gathering. Okay, because guys, listen. Verse 42, Jesus called them over and he says to them, you know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles dominate them, and their men of high positions exercise power over them, but it must not be like that among you. On the contrary, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of all. It's like Jesus is gathering them in. He says, listen, man, you guys are arguing about who's going to be the greatest. Let me give you the secret. Let me tell you the secret about being great. And I love that Jesus does this for these guys. He doesn't rebuke them. He doesn't say, I can't believe you guys are having this argument again. You want to be great. He says, no, you want to be great? It's okay. It's not the what that they're looking for, it's the how that they've got wrong. I think Jesus is saying, yeah, you should want to be a great follower of me. You should want to be a great disciple. You should want to give me your everything. You should want to be great in the kingdom. But you're going about it all wrong. You've missed it. Because you've seen the leaders that you've had. You've seen the leaders around here and how they lord over people and how they have this kind of iron fist and this authority over people and how they rule them in such a way that they exalt themselves. Their authority and their power is, look at me, look how great I am. That's the kind of power you're looking for. That's the kind of authority. If that's the kind of greatness, influence you're looking for, then that's not how you become great. Not in the kingdom of God. He says, must not be this way for you. On the contrary, you want to be great. He gives them these two words. If you want to be great, you've got to be the servant. If you want to be first of all, you must be the slave. He uses this word servant here. This word servant means you want to be great, then you've got to voluntarily give of your life. If you want to be someone who's looked at as a person of greatness, a person of influence, a person of power and authority, if that's who you want to be, then you've got to decide that you're going to be the servant. You're going to voluntarily give of yourself. And he says, if you want to be first, you've got to be the slave of all. Jesus is not, he's not giving his stamp of approval on slavery. That's not what Jesus is doing here. So people that take this text, Jesus is again speaking in a metaphorical sense. He's saying, look, if you want to be the greatest, you've got to be the servant. They would know what that means. If you want to be first, you've got to be the slave. This would absolutely blow their minds. And in some sense, it ought to be strange to us. I know if you've grown up in church, you've heard this, but if you think about it like hearing it for the first time, it really seems pretty absurd. You want to be great, you've got to be the servant. That's not how the world's economy works. It's not how it worked then, and it's not really how it works now. When people start thinking about great, they start thinking about being on top, not being the servant. You've seen these guys. You've seen how they lead, how it's all about their own power and their own authority. That's not how it is with you. That's not how it is in the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God, you must serve. You must voluntarily give of your life. You must be like a slave. You must give up every right to your own life. That's what it means to follow Jesus. That's what it means to really serve other people. Your life is no longer yours. Again, irony. Jesus says, you're not like them. They're slaves to themselves, slaves to their own desires for their own flesh. You've got to become really a slave of Christ. Your life is no longer about you. Your life is no longer about your own power and your own authority and people thinking how great you are. If you want that to happen, then this is what you have to do. You've got to serve other people. You've got to give your life away. And then Jesus says in verse 45, for even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many. I can just imagine the disciples sitting there, hearing Jesus say this, something similar that he said before them, and them just thinking, God, Jesus, this can't be right. This isn't the right way. This isn't how we're going to be great. This isn't how the kingdom is going to have power and authority over people. This can't be right. And then Jesus says, just like the Son of Man, just like me, if anyone in all of history has the right to stand up and say, I'm the one who needs to be served, it's Jesus. Even in this moment, right? We know what Jesus has come and done. This is fully God, fully man. Jesus has been here on the earth and he's lived his life and he's got these followers and they're expecting him to take over and be this earthly king that's going to just rule and reign. And Jesus says that's not how it's going to be. If anybody has the right to say, serve me, I deserve for you guys to be my servants. That's not what Jesus does. Jesus says himself here, he does not come to be served, but to serve. Think about the life of Jesus. Jesus was always giving himself for other people. He did not consider equality with God a thing to be grasped. Taking the form of a human, he emptied himself and he comes to earth. This is the God-man, one who deserves everything, one who deserves to be served. And then we see Jesus going around and healing people and eating dinner with people. And see Jesus at the Last Supper later, and he gets his disciples together and he washes their feet. Here's the master, the teacher. And he's serving them. This is foreign to them. They don't understand. I don't know, if you've grown up in the church, you've heard about Jesus to serve, and you're like, yeah, this is kind of normal. No, this is not normal. Have you ever had anybody try to wash your feet? Someone that maybe particularly you thought was in an authority? It's just weird. It's awkward. Have you ever had anybody in authority over you? Maybe it's a boss, maybe someone, and they try to serve you. They try to do something for you that you should be doing for them. It's just weird. It's like this isn't the way it should be. This just doesn't seem right. Jesus says, that's the way it is in my kingdom. He says, not only did he not come to not be served, but to serve and to give his life a ransom for many. This is important right here. Jesus says, I came not to be served, but to serve, and ultimately to give my life. That's what it means to serve others. Jesus literally laid down his life so that you and I might be able to find God, that we might be able to be reconciled to God. Jesus leaves heaven, comes to earth, lives as a man, is beaten, lives perfectly, no sin, lives perfectly, serves humanity, serves humankind, doesn't come in power and authority as some great king that we know kings to be. He submits himself to the will of the Father. He serves humanity, he lives in perfection, he gets to the end, he's beaten, he's tortured, he's flogged, and he's killed. He's hung on a cross and he's killed. Then he rises on the third day. And this is why, to be a ransom for many. And Jesus died on the cross to pay the ransom for you and for I, that we may be free. Jesus gave his life so that we did not have to give ours literally, but that we now have to give ours figuratively because of what Jesus has done. Jesus is both the example of what it means to ultimately live as a service to others, to give your life to other people, to be a servant, to be a slave for others. Jesus is both the example and the source of how you and I are to live in serving others. So when he set us free, he paid the ransom for us. We were captive. We were prisoners to ourselves. And we placed our faith in Jesus. He ransomed us. He set us free that now we may be able to live our lives for his glory, for his fame, that we may be able to serve others. This is important. The gospel is not just about salvation. We talked about it last week. This is the source for how you and I can say this morning, we want to be followers of Jesus Christ who will live like servants as slaves to all around us. We will serve others with everything of who we are. We look at the life of Jesus, and not only is it an example to us, but the only way we can live out this selfless life is if we find our faith, if we find our grace and our mercy, we find everything of who we are in Jesus, that we would be set free, we would be ransomed. Now, can the world, are there people out there who don't know Christ, who can't serve others? Yes. There's people out there that are serving or giving, giving of themselves, but I would argue with this morning, they can't fully do it in the way the kingdom, the new kingdom of God expects us. Because in some sense, it's still about you. Right? For us as followers of Christ, our service to others is not about us. Our service to others is about Jesus Christ because He's ransomed us, because He set us free. That should seem a little foreign, right? You set free to serve. That's the way it is in the kingdom. Just kind of thought about, what does that mean again for us in this place? Serving others. What does that mean? It means that I think one of the big hurdles that we have to get over when we start thinking about serving others, I think one of the biggest hurdles in church life particularly, we start thinking about serving each other in this church, is that many of us in this room, we feel like we're useless. I think all of us have within us, man, we want to be great, and we start particularly talking about the kingdom of God. We want to serve the church, we want to serve, and I think many of us say, I'm not so sure that I'm good enough. Right? You've made those excuses, right? Well, we need some teachers. Well, I'm not very good at teaching. I don't know the Bible enough. I don't know if I can relate to people. Right? I think when it boils down to it, for a lot of us, we think that we're just useless. God can't use me. I want to be great and I want to be used, but I just don't think I have it. And so when you say things like that, when you make excuses like that, you diminish the grace of God. You diminish the ransom that Jesus paid for you to set you free. Jesus set you free to serve the church, and when we make excuses of why we can't serve, what we're saying is the grace and the mercy that Jesus gave me to set me free to live as a disciple, it's not enough for me. You've just diminished the grace of God. So the Bible says when Jesus saves us, He sets us free to serve Him. He gives us gifts. He gives us talents. He gives us abilities that He expects us to use and to serve in this place. I want you to know this morning you're not useless. There are no useless disciples. God has brought you here to this place. He's gifted you, uniquely gifted you. He's given you gifts and talents and abilities, and He wants you to use them for the glory of God in this place. When we say serve others, we mean in this place that you find a place that you should serve. You teach or you help in a classroom, or you help in the youth or the college, or you get on a women's ministry team or a men's ministry team. We got a whole host of things that you could do in this place where you could play your part. Now listen, I think sometimes when we think about service, we think titles. And certainly there are some people that have titles, and that's just, I love our deacons. Sometimes every time we have guys that prepare to be deacons, there's always this big hurdle of, I really think I want to be a deacon, but I don't want the title of deacon, right? Well, I understand the heart behind that. The reality is the title isn't for you, the title's for everybody else. So when people need help, they know where the deacons are, they can go to them, right? I know some people are like, I don't like titles. That's okay. Not everybody in the church has titles. Maybe God's gifted you to be an encourager. And we're not going to give you the title of gifted encourager at Southside, like number one encourager or whatever. You're going to wear a badge. That's not how that works. How it works is you come in here each week and you get into a classroom, you get into a home group, or even in the midst of here, and you see someone you know and you want to just go up and you just encourage them. Use the gift that God has given you to encourage people. But not only do we serve in this place, but the idea of being a disciple and serving others is outside of this place. That you have a mentality that says, I exist to be a servant and slave to all. So that when you go home as a mom or a dad, particularly let me just say to you fathers, on Father's Day, you want to be a person of power and authority and influence in your home, then go home and serve and be the slave to your family. When your kids think about your leadership, moms and dads, do they look at you and do they think, this person, man, they love me? Certainly they are my authority. Certainly they are over me, but they do it in such a way that they want to serve me. I tried to think about how that plays out, because there's this really thin line. When I start talking about serving others at home and serving others in the workplace, there's a thin line. You're like, Tim, are you telling me that I can't, want a promotion, that I've got to be like this really meek person who's always in the corner and gets everyone coffee or, whatever? And that's not what this means. It means you have a mentality that says you're here to serve other people in what you are doing. So for me this morning, when I get up and stand before you, I don't come up here to stand before you as this one who's got it all figured out, who's this power and authority, who's coming up here slamming my Bible saying, you guys need to do this. I figured it all out. You guys, come on, get your stuff together. That's not how I hope you hear me say this morning. What I hope you hear is a heart that says, man, I'm here to serve you. I'm preaching. I've studied all week, and I've tried to put this sermon together because I want to serve you God's word, that you might live as a better follower of Jesus Christ this week, that you might give more of your life to him. And we serve others by doing the best at what God has asked us to be and asked us to do. So when I go home and I serve my family, or you go to serve your workplace, it doesn't mean that you're just kind of this meek person in the corner. It means that you do the best you can to serve others, that you exist to do the best of whatever God has called you to, whatever your workplace or whatever it is, so the other people around you would be served. So that, and from the workplace, so that the people that your customers, that they would feel served. I know some of you are wondering, Tim, what did you do with all 1,000 of those tickets? I know you've been sitting here for 30 minutes going, Tim, what did you do? It was a great opportunity for me. It was everything that was in. So my daughter runs up to me. They have between them about 300 tickets. And they run up to me and they're like, Dad, let's put all of our tickets together. That's what you said, right? Let's put all of our tickets together. Right? She's not dumb. She knows Dad's got 1,000. She's got 300, not quite the same. And I have an incredible opportunity to either, I spun the deal. I put my 3 coins in. I got my 1,000. I'm gonna get my stuff, right? You can go get your lollipops and your little finger things, and I'm gonna get something awesome. I deserve this. This is the way. You guys would all have. You'd have stoned me if I did that, right? And you're like, that's terrible. So I say, yeah, let's get together. Here's my tickets. I want you to have them. I want you to use them. So we go home with a new toy gun and a little bow and arrow and princess ribbons, and we've got all of this stuff. And I go home with a glad heart that says, man, I served my kids. And this is not about me. It's not like, oh, Tim, you're such a great. And if you're around me with most of the time with my kids, you'd probably wonder. And I know that's small to think about tickets, but is that the cry of your heart when you think about serving others? You want to give of yourself. You want to give of your talents. You want to give of your time. You want to give of your ability so that other people would feel a sense of honor, would feel a sense of worth. Jesus has given us an incredible opportunity as his servants with these gifts and these abilities to give our lives for the sake of others. And what are you doing in your life to serve other people? Let's pray together.